So welcome to Foxstone Financial Money Matters show. We have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, somebody that I'm lucky enough to call my friend, somebody that I've known for, 15, 16 years, Brian,
least,
maybe 20.
Yeah.
Brian Watson, and many of you will know Brian from his work in politics, but Brian is one of those people that I look at and think, how can I become more like Brian in the way that I run my business and my work ethic and so forth. Brian, it's been a pleasure to know you, and we've become closer a little bit lately because of a mutual fund that you've kicked off. We'll talk about towards the end of the show. But the book that I read, this is your second book, correct?
It is correct, yes.
Yeah. The other one was The 7 Rings of...
Correct.
So tell us about the book. It's called Building, Lessons Learned in Real Estate and Life. So why did you write the book?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I was thinking the same thing about you, that I'm always looking up to you and how you run your business. So I guess we'll learn from each other. Well, just honored to be on your show today. So thank you. This is my second book. The first book was called The 7 Rings, Leading a Life of Purpose and Balance, and weaved in faith and work life and family life and all of those things. This book I decided to write because I really just want to share the lessons that I've learned in business. And I was on vacation in Vietnam last December, and I was flying from Vietnam over to Thailand, and all of a sudden the idea of this book hit me. And it's the book that I wish somebody would have given me when I was in high school, or I was in college, or starting my company, or even today, these lessons learned and golden nuggets from others.
Yeah, there's a lot of them in there. And as I read through the book, I've got almost every other page is highlighted with things that you've said that really stood out to me that made a difference in the way that I look at my life and how I'm running my business. So what I'd like to do today is just to go through some of these pages and have you expand on why you included these, what it means to you, and why it's in the book.
Absolutely.
So the first one says on page 6, it says, both personally and professionally, I've learned that the way a person views the world colors the way they live as well as the way they work. Our attributes inform our actions, and our attitudes inform our actions, and our attitudes are shaped not only by our circumstances, but also by the daily lessons we learn about building a firm foundation while reaching for the stars. Our present ties history to our future. Those are great sentences. So what's the background on that?
Yeah, well, I really believe that each one of us is uniquely created and uniquely put in a position to go do good things. We always assume everybody has equal information or the same equal past. Well, part of our paradigm of who we are today and where we're going in the future is the past and our unique experiences that no one else has had. And I really encourage people to think about that. It is an absolute blessing to be where we are. In my first book, I talked about this idea of what is at the center of your life, because what is at the center of your life affects where you are on your outer rings, your business life, personal life, family life. And so really begin to question that and say, okay, what can I do to contribute onto the field of life in a positive, proactive way?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It really does. Everything that we, at least for most of us, what we try and do is say, what are our core values, and how is that going to impact the way that I live my life? Now, unfortunately, some of us aren't in touch with that, and we haven't had the experience of learning that. And I'm kind of one of those individuals that tries to build from the inside out so that I improve myself as well as the world around me. I'm not as good at it as I'd like to be, but it's important to me.
Absolutely.
And so this really spoke to me. Because if you forget your values as you work and build your business and build your family, build relationships outside your family and so on and so forth, if they're not done with a value purpose, then you tend to put last things first and first things last, and your priorities are out of whack.
They really are. And I think a lot of people, sadly, are more reactive than proactive in their lives. Stimulus happens to us. We got to make the mortgage payment, or we got to meet this deadline. And a lot of people are always reacting to things. And the more that you can be proactive in your life and say, okay, here are my core values. This is what emanates from my inside and how I'm going to live my life. Then you're able to be an architect of your life. And that's really what I encourage people with this book. And, I wrote this book not because I'm a writer and I'm trying to make money off a book. In fact, 100% of the proceeds from this book get donated away to charities. These are just some lessons that I've learned from others and some personal exploring that I've done over the years, and just wanted to commit this to paper and have people take it and say, what does it mean to my personal life, and how can I use this to better my life in some way?
It's interesting. The people that I've met that build wealth like you are, and are highly successful, typically the ones that are most successful are those individuals that believe in giving back.
Absolutely.
They're unselfish. Now, there are selfish individuals out there that are lucky enough to succeed, but typically people that do very well believe in the theory of giving back and sharing their wealth and their wisdom. And that's one of the things I have to compliment you on. You're so gracious with your time and meeting people and extending your hand of how can I help you grow your life or your business, your connections.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I'm a really big believer, every one of us, regardless of our station in life, whether we have $1 in the bank account or $100 million in the bank account, you can give of your time, your talent, and your treasure in some way and help to bless others in some way. And, that might be a kind word you say to someone on the street, or it might be meeting that young person who's trying to figure out their direction in life. And it's about just investing time in others. One of the things I mentioned in the book, it was a very influential book in my life, and it's the book Halftime by Bob Buford. And he was very successful at a young age, and he reached this thing called success, which is usually defined from a worldly perspective. And he wrote this book, and he said, when you get to the halftime of life, using a sports metaphor, and you go into the locker room, and you're a little bit bloody, a little bit tired from the first half of playing the game of life, and you go out and get ready to play the second half of your life, really, hopefully you'll make this transition from this thing called success to this thing called significance. And significance is about blessing others, about living a life larger than yourself. And that book was very influential for me. And I decided to take that even into my company and said, yes, we're in commercial real estate, and yes, we're trying to drive great returns, but we're really in the people business. And so we're really in the job creation and opportunity creation business by buying vacant buildings all across America and trying to have a positive impact. So it's just fun when you read that book, and I hope that this book may be some glimmer of some good ideas for some people that help them on their journey.
Great thoughts. It's you mentioned in here that your father passed away at an early age for you, and then Bill came into your life after your mother and father divorced. And he was an entrepreneur as well as your mother. So you have your dad was a bit of an entrepreneur, your grandparents, and so you have this in your blood, pretty honestly. And my dad died when I was 12, and so that's something that we share in common. And unfortunately, I didn't have someone else that my mom didn't remarry until I was 22, and then she married a horse's ass, so it was not somebody that I looked up to. But I was not lucky enough to have somebody like you did with Bill, who helped shape a lot of work habits and entrepreneurial skills and so forth. But you really grasped that at an early age. You took it and ran with it. You didn't sit around waiting for what's next.
Yeah, I really did. My family, literally from my grandparents, my grandfather came from Switzerland, my grandmother came from Denmark. They worked in the sweatshops in New York City. They lived the American dream. They saved up a little money and then opened the little Switzerland of America in upstate New York. And then even my father, the first graduate from high school, and that entrepreneurial spirit has always been with our family. My family didn't have a lot of money, though. They had a really strong work ethic. And so my whole idea and paradigm from the beginning was that I was supposed to go out and create something of value for others. And as long as you're focused on others and creating that value for them, good things will happen. Similar to your firm, what you do at Foxstone. You're always thinking about your clients and keeping them in mind first and foremost. And so I love being an entrepreneur, and I love creating jobs jobs and opportunities. For those who are entrepreneurs, though, you know it's not easy. It's really hard work every single day, and all of your employees get paid before you do, and you're up late at night thinking about how you might be able to make payroll or how are you going to handle this particular issue in the office in a given time. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's absolutely a blessing to be in that position.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think at times, would it be easier to go to work for a corporation and be given a steady paycheck and work for somebody? And there's no way I could do that.
Yeah. At the same time, I'm glad there are people who do want to work because, to have employees. But being an entrepreneur is really, really hard. I always tell people it's a lot harder than I ever thought it would be, but it's also a greater blessing than I ever thought it could be as well.
Yeah, great opportunities. Well, on page 14 of your book, you talk about brain over brawn, and I'll just read a little bit here. It says, smart work, on the other hand, supplements muscle power with brain power. It multiplies energy invested in a task by using intelligence, experience, and instinct for maximum results. This mindset develops a strategy that allows you to use your gifts, talents, and resources to accomplish the most results for the least amount of time. And smart work always asks, what is the highest and best use of my personal time, rather than assuming your time is of equal value as anyone else's. This is one of those lessons that the gentleman that I was working for, it happened to be my father, my wife's uncle, when I came into the insurance investing world years ago, almost 40 years ago, excuse me. And he taught me this and was working to help me learn this. And delegation is really what this is about. Let people that are good at doing something, set them free to do those things in your business that they're good at, and you do the things that you're good at. Don't you sit and wash the windows, not that you can't, but that's not what you get paid to do. You get paid to drive the bus while somebody else should be paid to wash the windows, for example. Talk a little bit more about how that works in your business. Yeah.
Well, I unfortunately didn't have someone who taught me that lesson. I wish they would have. I just learned it over the years myself. And, I grew up in an agricultural community, Olathe on the western slope of Colorado, and, I dig ditch, with a shovel. And got
on the end of an idiot stick.
Exactly. But, it was good, honest work. But at the end of the day, are you best at digging the ditch or helping to get the resources to help dig the ditch? And, I'm a big believer that there's something you can learn from every person you meet in the world. And it doesn't matter their station in life. And that is what you want to emulate in your own life and what you might want to change. And some of the most successful people I know, I've learned more of what I want to avoid in my life than what I want to emulate. And I say that because, some of these people are absolute control maniacs. They're the only ones who can do it, and no one can do it as good as them. We need to surround yourself with people who are better and smarter than you in specific areas and remove the roadblocks for them and really create opportunity together. And that's one of the greatest things that I love being an employer and an entrepreneur is to see my people blossom. Hire them, remove the roadblocks, help set the strategy, and just see them blossom on a personal and professional level. And when you do that, you're going to actually have a life to be able to live versus having to do everything yourself.
Yeah, I agree. It's wonderful to watch people grow. That is one of the things I like most about what I do.
Fantastic. There's nothing like it. And to see their dreams. The other day I had one of my employees reach out to me and he sent me a really nice thank you note. And he said, Brian, I just want to thank you. My wife and I just bought our first home. And I couldn't have done it without you. And I just really, really appreciate it. It means the world. And we can't wait to raise our kids here and everything like that. That alone, that one compliment is worth more than any real estate deal or anything else that we're going to do. I mean, it's just personally rewarding to know that in some small way, I helped them achieve their dreams.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a big part of the reason I'm in the financial planning business is to help people reach their dreams. In our office, in our conference room, there's a big picture artwork. It looks like a bottle cap, an old bottle cap, and on the top of it says dreams. And it's like 4x6 or 4x5. It's a big painting. And really I think that's what we're in the business. I'm in the business of doing is helping people dream and then making those dreams come true.
I love it.
And I know you feel the same way.
Yeah.
And early on, 15, 18, 20 years ago when I first met you, that's what you were talking about. that's why you were doing what you're doing, is helping people make the money that you were going to help them make so they could accomplish their dreams.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. We just sold a building here in Denver, and this couple who is getting a little bit older in years, they invested a good part of their retirement with me, and we were fortunate in having a phenomenal return. We had a 3x return on that particular deal. And, what was great for me is that they said to me, you know what, Brian, now we're going to be able to live a better retirement. Now we're going to be able to help our grandkids, and go to college and do their dreams. And that's the stuff that's fun for me. We don't always make those kind of returns on deals, but we work really hard. And just like you're helping to achieve people's dreams. And there's a lot of responsibility with that. But it sure is a blessing to be able to give them that financial wisdom and everything that you're able to do.
Yeah, really true. Let's see. I've got so many things highlighted.
I know. I see a lot of highlights over there. You actually read my book. I'm impressed.
Yeah, one thing that you talked about in your travels around the world, this really impressed me, because I've got this theory that I don't like to fly more than 8 hours.
Okay.
At one time.
8 hours.
8 hours. That's it. I can handle 8 hours, but more than that, it drives me nuts. So I just don't fit well in seats.
Yeah.
So if I've got to go longer than that, it's got to be either business class or first class if I can make it happen. But you talk about in here, and this really impressed me, about going into other countries and respecting cultures. Taking time to learn about the people that you're talking to, not just banging out a deal, but sitting down maybe over a cup of tea or whatever their culture is, and talking about family, talking about things that they value, and getting to know them as people. And talk to me a little bit about that. I was so impressed with this.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I didn't come from a family that traveled a lot. In fact, when I was a kid, we never went out of the country, period. First time I went out of the country when I was in college, and I went to Mexico. And so I was fortunate to go on this program called Semester at Sea. And it was a work-study student, so I had to work my way around the world, but I got to be exposed to it. And I just fell in love with travel and other cultures. And so I've incorporated part of my business now into it, where most of our investors come from the United States, but I have investors on a global basis. And for me, it's a lot of fun, because I get to go meet these families and break bread with them. And from the American perspective, we always want to go in and get to the deal and move on with our life.
Yep.
And in a lot of these cultures, you have to spend time building trust. And there's a great book called The Speed of Trust that I recommend with people, that if you invest the proper amount of time with trust, just like you do at Foxstone with your clients, once you build trust, then the transaction process even goes faster. But you have to spend that time up front. And so for me, I've learned to really spend time literally breaking bread and sipping tea and learning about their families and their cultures, which is really rewarding to me, because I get to learn a lot. And then hopefully over time, we can go do philanthropy together, we can go do business together, or we can just have a good friendship together. And it's just been a real blessing.
Yeah, you made a comment in here on page 23. It says, you might be surprised how much more fulfilling your life can be when you're willing to receive what others are so generously willing to share with you. That's a great sentence.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I think it's true. I think oftentimes, there's the blessing for the giver. And oftentimes we think, well, okay, I've invested this time, but, what have I gotten out of it? Well, it's just the idea of sitting and learning. I liken it to, I was giving a speech the other day in California at a family investment conference. And I liken it to everybody has a little flashlight in their hand. And there's a big dark room out there, and everybody turns on their flashlight from their personal paradigm, perspective, background, and they see the illumination of what their light shows them. Well, the more that we can learn from other people and these different flashlights, the more that we're going to illuminate the whole room. And my goal is to flip the switch on the room where I can see what's going on in the whole room eventually. And so I just really encourage people, spend a little bit of time, instead of having all these sound bites about a different culture or reading these snippets over here, get to know the real people. And I think when you do, you're going to find it very rewarding and very blessing, both for them and for you.
Okay, so you've opened the door, and I'm going to walk through it.
Uh-oh.
Trust. And on page 24, you said trust is vital before business can be done. You have put yourself out there to be involved in politics, which is probably one of the most frustrating to many people. Trust and politics couldn't be further apart. 180
sadly.
degrees,
Yeah.
sadly. So what advice would you give those that are listening about the political process and building trust? Because it seems like so many politicians, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that mean well, but once they get into it, it's like, have you forgotten what you got in this for?
Well, I think it's sad. Again, I didn't come from a political family, and how I got involved in politics, and I don't know if I've even shared this with you, is I was on semester at sea in 1992, and we were sailing from South America, from Brazil, over to South Africa.
Okay.
And a gentleman by the name of Desmond Tutu joined our ship.
Really?
And yes, and I got to meet him. And when I landed in South Africa, for the first few days, I went out into the countryside, and then later I came back into the city and got to go into the black townships. This is at the time with apartheid, was still going on. And it really hit me, this idea that a government can control our reality and can control people's destinies and futures. And it broke my heart. And so I decided to get involved. And so I have been involved in politics, and I do it because I tell people I believe we've won the historical lottery of all time to live where and when and how we do in the United States of America. And if we don't get good people in office for us, our life is at stake in terms of our culture and how we live, et cetera. And so I have run for office. I ran for House District 3 back in 2012, and most recently ran for State Treasurer of Colorado last year. And, anybody who has an interest in it, I highly recommend that they do it. I loved every minute of it. Trust is absolutely vital, and I think we need to rebuild trust, and we need to encourage the people to run for the right reasons and to serve for the right reasons. Won the primary. Unfortunately, it wasn't a year for somebody who was center-right in Colorado to win last year, but some of my best friendships have come from running for office, and I'm glad that I did it. I put it all on the line, and unfortunately, we came up short.
Yeah, well, I'm very disappointed that you didn't.
Well, thank you.
You didn't win, because it would have been fun to see your entrepreneurial spirit and your business acumen in office, especially as treasurer.
Yeah.
But you've done so much good in your Opportunity Coalition that you do, and how you invite other people to grow. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about that, would you?
Yeah.
What that is?
So I operate in 3 primary buckets. There's my business bucket, which is commercial real estate. There's philanthropy, which is the Opportunity Coalition and some of the other things we do. And then politics, and it's all on the foundation of faith for me. And so on the Opportunity Coalition, it's an idea that hit me after I ran for House District 3 back in 2012. It was the first time I ran, and I just saw how disconnected people were. They were either political people or nonprofit people or business people, and they weren't really communicating well unless they wanted something from someone else. And so I lost that race, and within a few weeks, I decided to launch the Opportunity Coalition to unite people, to build bridges together, to celebrate capitalism and freedom, et cetera. So we have been running it now ever since then. We bring in a speaker who's been successful in a certain field, and they share their golden nuggets of wisdom. Most recently, bless you.
Excuse me.
Most recently, we decided to tackle the 4 top issues on the minds of people in Colorado, according to most polls. And that was the impending recession. Bless you. That was the impending recession. We just had one a little over a week ago with regards to affordable housing in Colorado. The next one's on education, and the final one's transportation. And so we're bringing in these panelists, usually 3 panelists with different views, and we just use it as a resource. Anybody is welcome. I underwrite the majority of the cost of the Opportunity Coalition, and I do it because I want to build bridges and tear down barriers among people and have people get connected. And if one person meets a new friend by showing up at the event, or if they can learn something new, that's great. And people can learn more at opportunitycoalition.com, and we have all the videos and snippets from the different events there.
I found it to be very interesting. You've had some great guests there. It's
been a lot of fun.
I'll bet.
Yeah, it's very educational. And then I also do my 10 golden nuggets of wisdom. And so I take 10 things that I think the guests have said that are really, impactful, and I share it at the end. And I tell people, look, those are the nuggets I got, but if you have other nuggets, feel free to get your own.
Yep. Let's go to Entrepreneurship 101. You've got 20 items listed here that are meaningful to you, that you said that you need to be aware of and understand in order to be successful. So talk to me about prepare for the unpredictable, because I think if there's one thing that's consistent in running a business, it's the unpredictable.
Absolutely. I think anybody who has an idea to an entrepreneur, I encourage them to pursue that, whatever that looks like for them. But understand that it's completely unpredictable what's going to happen. What you write on a piece of paper today is definitely not going to happen in the future. It may, but most likely not. And so that's part of being an entrepreneur. It's this idea of being flexible and nimble. And, one of the things that I keep in the binder of my book every day, it's a quote I got in college, and that is, success is not final and failure is not fatal. And that as you're an entrepreneur, and I use it to ski bumps, skiing the moguls in Colorado, that you're going to hit a bump, you're going to move, and you're going to react, and you've got to be nimble, because the unpredictable is an absolute given. Change is the one constant that is absolutely going to happen, and you're going to be rewarded or hurt depending on how you react to it.
Yeah, I like that, and I liked your analogy in here of skiing. I'm a skier. I grew up skiing up in Idaho, and your analogy of either downhill or cross country skiing. I always have enjoyed downhill because of the pull of gravity and how to find a line down through the bumps, and how to maintain balance when Mother Nature and the gravity is trying to throw you out of it.
Absolutely.
That's tough.
Well, and living in the West, I ski a lot as well. Anything outdoors I love doing. And it just hit me when I was skiing, is that feels like entrepreneurship or making a decision, and even how life is. And, you get a choice. You can either pick a really good line, or you can go against those bumps and really, end up in a crash. But also to enjoy the event, enjoy the time going down the run. Life is a precious gift. And again, good and bad as you may perceive it may happen. But at the end of the day, make sure you're enjoying it as well, because it is an absolute gift we've been given.
Yeah, it's funny. As I read this part on the analogy of the skiing, I can remember the burn in the legs, the cramping, and just stop, and I'm leaning on my poles, gasping for air, and you got the coldness, you have the crisp look, everything's white and blue skies, and thinking, this is really a dream come true.
Oh,
it is such an amazing experience, because whether it's floating through powder, which I describe as like skiing through whipped cream,
I like that,
or whether it's attacking the bumps to see if I can maintain balance through a very difficult line. Skiing is very analogous to life.
Yeah, it really is.
And so I really enjoyed the analogy that you made in there. One thing that you do that I was very interested in, that you talked about in your book, is that you write goals down, things that you want to get accomplished every day, and then you cross them off or you delegate them.
Yep.
Talk about that. That shows great discipline to me.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm a little bit old school, and I use paper for that. I think there's nothing like committing something to paper and seeing it. Now, if you want to be digital, that's fine. But the reason I like paper, and I keep it as a yellow pad, it's a legal pad. It's right inside my book. And I literally write down things that need to be done or things that need to be followed up on. Then in the left column, if it's one of my employees, I put their initial next to it. So when they come in and meet with me, I can quickly run down and say, okay, this is BG, that's Brent Gray or whoever it is, and I need to follow up with that item. Then when the item is done, there's nothing like the power to go ahead and run a line through it and to see it, because mentally you now say, okay, I have accomplished something, I have gotten something off my list. And I think subconsciously that encourages us more to go ahead and achieve those goals and get them off the list. It also frees up your mind from the space that you have. As soon as an idea hits my mind, whether I'm in the shower or getting ready or whatever it might be through my day, I either send myself a quick email or I commit it to my yellow pad and get it out of my mind so I can free my mind up to think about the next thing and not let it fall through the cracks. My team makes a joke, though. They're like, oh no, I'm on the yellow pad, because they know when they come in, I'm going to follow up on the yellow pad. And until that item is done, they're going to remain on the yellow pad. And so they do a little dance when they get off the yellow pad. They're pretty excited. But I just encourage people, use your system that works for you, but write it down.
A dull pencil's is better than a sharp mind, and a goal not written is only a wish.
Yeah, I like that. That's good stuff.
So in here you talk about, on page 38, you talk about trusting your gut. And you say, if you want to be a shrewd investor, be open-minded, maintain a respect for the ebbing and flowing of the market. Once you identify a deal you want to invest in, don't hesitate. Timing is indeed everything. The more experience you gain, the more naturally you can spot the rhythm of investment cycles in certain industries and companies. This is one of the things that beguiles me, and it's one of the things that my clients constantly wrestle with. That, like at the end of last year, the market dropped 17% and 13% in the last 3 months. And it's dropped recently because of headline risk, not necessarily anything economics changed, but it could change. So talk to me a little bit about trusting your gut and how that's played out for you in your life.
Yeah. Well, again, I think we're a culmination of our experiences and the data and the information that we get. And at the end of the day, each of us has a unique view and opportunity. And so the more that you can say, okay, I'm going to trust my gut and I'm going to invest here. And sometimes you might get it wrong. Sometimes you might get it right. But you make sure that you learn those lessons. And the more that you tune into that and the more that you perform, the more that I think your mind is always searching constantly to say, okay, where is the opportunity? And as you reward yourself for the wins that you have, the more your mind is going to focus in those areas. And so trust your gut. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong. Don't bet the ranch on one opportunity, but be diversified. And that's what you teach a lot of your clients, right? And you have your gut, they have their gut, and it's coming in and talking about the market. But trust yourself, and over time, I think you're absolutely rewarded for it.
Okay, wonderful. You've mentioned this several times, and I know it's a personal thing, but I would like to have you expound a little bit more on your faith-based process and how your faith winds through your business and your life.
Absolutely.
It helps you make the choices you do.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, I don't wear my faith on my shirt sleeve, but those who know me know that I'm a Christian, and faith is very important in my life. And whatever one's faith is, make sure that you're living a life of purpose and meaning. And so in my first book, I talk about that first ring. And I say that sometimes people put their work life in the center of their life, or, rock and roll, or whatever it is that they want to put in the center of their life. And whatever is at the center of your life will emanate through the other rings of your life and how you live. So I encourage people to think about this thing called faith. And if faith is for you and you have a certain belief system, make sure that you're trying to live an authentic life with that. Faith is very important to me. It drives everything about me in that, I've had much and I've had little, and I don't measure myself by what I have. I really want to live a life of purpose and significance and love and service to others. That's really what drives me. And if I'm fortunate to have a company and create opportunity, wonderful. And if I'm going to dig ditches somewhere again, I'll go back to my roots and dig ditches if I need to. But I think it gives you a really clear perspective of purpose and meaning in life. And I think we need more of that. All of us need it in today. We have so much information and so much sound bites and so little time. But you know what? Life is a precious gift. And I think the more that you can tune into that, the more that your life will take a different meaning and perspective.
I completely agree. In fact, I'm a real student of Dr. Stephen Covey, and he talks about the 4 pillars of life, spiritual, physical, mental, and social.
Yep.
And it's funny that so many people will cut out the spiritual part of their life and try and make up for that by becoming maybe a superstar physically, or being a great PhD, or having a great mind, or they'll make up for one of those 3 that they don't want to work in by strengthening one of the others. And it's like, to me, it's like taking a table and making one leg longer than the other 3.
Yeah.
It's going to look funny. It's not going to work well. And in order for, in my life, the more that I have kept my personal values around my faith and kept it in balance so that all 4 legs of my table are equal, the happier I've been.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not perfect, so I make mistakes, and I have made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I know I've been happiest when I've allowed those 4 areas of my life to work in cohesive balance.
Yeah. And I think that's shown in your life. And I think that's so important, again, being more proactive versus reactive. And make sure you're thinking through that process, because sometimes we all get so busy and then we wake up and like, oh my goodness, my life is out of whack. I'm spending way too much time working and not focusing on my family or serving others or whatever it might be. So keep that rhythm and ebb and flow, and make sure you have balance in your life.
We're talking with Brian Watson, who is a recent author, authored a book called Building, Lessons Learned in Real Estate and Life. Somebody that I've known for quite some time and respect a great deal. Brian has become very successful in his business and his world by working hard, being smart, and doing things the right way. And, Brian, it's sad, but whenever you are successful and you put yourself out there, you always have the detractors.
Oh, yes.
You always have those people who want to take shots at you
Yeah.
and point out your failures. The thing that I think is important in your life is that just like most everybody, most entrepreneurs, you haven't been without your failures.
Absolutely.
But you keep going. You keep your vision and your hope of what you're trying to build, make it go and grow, because we're not in control of everything.
Nope.
So we have to learn how to rely on our inner strength and our faith and our the things that we've learned through life. Fall off a horse, get up and get back on it. I know you ride horses and you love it. So
Yeah.
let's, if you can, in the last few minutes of the show, could you share what the Northstar Integrity Growth Fund? This is a new fund that's coming out and or that is out. Tell us about what this mutual fund or this fund is all about and why you created it.
Absolutely. So I founded my company 20 years ago, and we own assets in 15 states throughout America right now. And Integrity Trust has invested with us in 38 real estate deals over the years, and just been really blessed and fortunate to have them as partners. And they've invested on the equity side with us. And we've been fortunate in making money on those deals. Not that past performance is a guarantee for future success. But we decided to launch this fund together, and the fund is focused about income and growth. And so we're raising this $125 million fund structured as a private REIT. It's an evergreen fund, and we're going to deploy 75% of the money into value-add assets and 25% into income-generating assets. And it's all about appreciation and cash flow. So, for instance, we just acquired a building in Houston. It's 80% leased, has below-market rents, and so there's income coming off the 80% already. As we increase the occupancy and increase the rents, we want to continue to drive the income and make quarterly distributions for the investors. What I think is really unique about this, I don't know of another trust company who has partnered directly with a commercial real estate company, adding all of that back-end office and sophistication, allowing us to go in and execute on real estate, which is all we do at Northstar Commercial Partners.
So what makes this fund different, really, in the way it's built than another REIT?
Yeah. So several things. First and foremost, we put investors at the front of the line. And so the first hurdle in distribution on this fund is a 10% return to investors that may accrue if we don't have current cash for it. A lot of other funds, may not have one or might have a much lower one. So 10%. The second is a full return of every dollar invested back to the investors. And then the third is an 80-20 split in favor of investors. Frankly, these are the best economic terms that I've ever offered investors in the history of my company. And I'm doing it because we want to have cash at the ready to take advantage of the recessionary period that a lot of us believe is coming. I think there's going to be some great opportunities to execute on some real estate. Number two, we have an investment committee that's made up of half of the people, the two of them from the trust company, from Integrity Trust, and the other two from Northstar Commercial Partners. And I think that gives a very unique perspective on the investment committee. It's not just a real estate company. It's not just a trust company. It's two groups working together. We've done 38 transactions together with success. In terms of the diversification, we're focused on the Western U.S. with these assets. We have the ability to go throughout the country, but it's a Western U.S. focus because we believe there's a lot of opportunity in the West for the future. Think about baby boomers, the growth, et cetera. We're going to invest in office and industrial assets, medical assets, and senior care assets, which we think provide good returns for the investors. And so I think it's a very unique fund in that it's smaller and nimble. It's boutique. We're working with groups like yourself, where this is something that's not going to be mass marketed to everybody under the sun, but it's a focused, unique fund that's very unique.
How long is the period that you have to stay invested? Because some REITs are 6 to 7 years.
Yeah, so we have structured it as a REIT that you can, take your money and trade it out as you want to. However, this is going to be an evergreen fund, so we're focused on a longer-term hold. So the assets we acquire, we want to enjoy cash flow for a 3 to 5 year period, making distributions to investors during that time period. And investors have rights in the agreement to move their money out when they want to. But it is not an easy marketable security. It is a fund environment, so we're looking for people who want to be there and enjoy that cash flow for years to come.
So why should somebody be in this? If someone's pretty well diversified throughout the market, why would they want to be in this instead of putting more money in another S&P 500 index fund or something like that?
Yeah. Well, that's where someone of your stature would counsel them. But my feeling is that it provides great diversification in terms of a different product type. 2, if you look at Northstar's performance over the years, again, not that past performance is a guarantee for future success, but we've been very fortunate, specifically in environments that have economic stress. Some of our best deals have been done in the recessionary environments, hands down. So I think we're very well positioned and have a lot of experience to add value in a turbulent time, specifically a recessionary time, where we can create additional value. Number 3, instead of being overlaid with a lot of fees and expenses like a lot of other funds are, this puts the investor at the front of the line, has very low fees structured throughout it, and all is about this long-term cash flow. And lastly, I would say, it's a Colorado-based entity, both Integrity Trust and Northstar Commercial Partners. We're from Colorado. We own assets in 15 states, and we have a Western U.S. focus. And so we're all about trying to drive value for the investors, not paying for some big expensive office space, in L.A. or New York or wherever these big funds will be. We're about creating value.
Typically, your style of investing is going in and paying below market value for a piece of property, putting some lipstick on it, doing some minimal repairs or some particular repairs to make it worth much more than what you bought it for, and then turning it for a profit. Is that not correct?
That is. We really believe you make your money on the buy, and that's mentioned in my book as well. And so even this fund, we're going to focus on assets that have a 30% or less in terms of their market value. And so we want to get those good deals. We want to work on the cash flow. We believe in investing and improving them, bringing the rents up and the occupancy up, enjoying some cash flow, and then executing. And it really comes down to just diligent, focused effort. We are a commercial real estate firm. We're not buying companies. We're not buying other stuff. We focus every single day of how to become better, smarter, faster in commercial real estate.
Well, I think the thing that's appealing to us as we counsel with our clients is it's a great, you said it's a great diversifier, but it's not necessarily, it's very low correlation to the market.
Correct.
Just because the market dips doesn't mean real estate dips. And so we hear this all the time. We talk about it with our clients. It's important to be diversified, but that doesn't mean growth stocks, value stocks, mid caps, large caps, small caps, international. It's investments that don't move in harmony with each other. You always want to be in investments that move against each other. So if you have some that aren't making money, you have some that are making money, or maybe some that aren't making as much, others are making a lot more.
Yeah.
So this is a good example of how that could work in somebody's portfolio.
Well, and you bring up a few good points there, and I mentioned this in my book. We're not buying the entire market. So even if the commercial real estate market were to, have its issues, we're not buying the entire market. We're buying 1 or 2 or 10 assets within the market. So we take a rifle approach. And one of the other things about this fund is we're really focused on those assets between $10 and $50 million. The reason being is it's smaller than most institutional investors will deploy capital, and it's larger than most individuals can. And so it's a really inefficient space where we can go in and create a lot of value. And this fund allows us to execute on that platform, driving the value. Regardless of market conditions, we really feel that we can have a niche and focus in that market.
Wonderful. Well, Brian, it's been wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to come in. The one thing I will close with is on page... I didn't bring my glasses. It looks like it's 66. The art of relationships is really rather simple. Listen and engage. And I will tell all the people that are watching this, that's exactly what you've done over the years with me. Whenever I've come in to talk to you, you listen and you engage. You're a great practitioner of that theory. You're not talking out of turn, or you don't walk your talk. You do. And I love that, because that is the secret of any healthy relationship. Listen and engage, whether it's your children, your spouse, your coworkers. That's what everybody wants. Really, when you're with me, give me you. And so just like today, you've listened, you've engaged, you've taken the time out of a very busy schedule, hobnobbing around the globe, and even with a blown Achilles tendon. I hear those are pretty painful. Is that true?
Well, yeah, it's a little painful, and likewise, I want to say the same thing for you. I always appreciate that about you. You do listen and engage, and you have to with your clients, and that really is what builds relationships. And we're honored to be friends with you, and we'd be honored to continue growing our relationship on the business side as well.
Well, thank you. Again, we've been talking to Brian Watson, the author of Building Lessons Learned in Real Estate and Life, a friend of mine and somebody that I admire a great deal. You've been watching Foxstone Financial, Wealth Matters, and we'll see you on the next video blog. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.